Hello and welcome to Sonic Character Chaos DX, the show where we always meet our potential. Man. In the distant future, one hedgehog fights an endless battle to save the world from an all-powerful cataclysmic force. With his quick wit and psychic power, he will fight with allies by his side or by himself to save us all. Yeah, sounds pretty cool, right? So, yeah, how did we get this guy? Silver the Hedgehog is by far one of the more divisive characters in the Sonic fanbase. Many love him dearly, but just as many question what he's even doing here. Probably not helped by the fact that his debut game was, well, that one. And then when they reintroduced him after 06 was retconned, it was in a game that no one played. This poor guy just can't catch a break! So, how did we even get here? Well, let's take it back to that fateful day in 2006. Silver was a brand spanking new character introduced in Sonic Team's all-new, all-ambitious Sonic the Hedgehog, and, well, y'all know the script with this game by now. But what was Silver's deal? Basically, he's a time traveler from a ruined future that was destroyed by a monster known as Iblis. He has come to the past just before the calamity strikes to prevent said monster from getting free, and he seems to believe that it's somehow all Sonic's fault, calling him the Iblis Trigger. Anyway, he believes this because a very trustworthy individual he met in the future called Mephiles tells him, "Hey, Sonic did this," and shows him a picture of Sonic in front of some flames like he's fucking Sephiroth. Jokes aside, I can suspend my disbelief enough to believe that what Silver saw was a bit more convincing than what this scene's awful presentation shows us, but what I can't forgive with this plot point is that Blaze seems to recognize Sonic but doesn't say anything, which, Blaze in this game, oh boy, Blaze's episode is gonna be fun. Anywho, when sent to the present, Silver gets separated from Blaze and ends up running into Amy, who is willing to help a lost hedgehog find his way, because that's just the kind of person that Amy is. This comes to a point where Silver finds Sonic, jumps his ass, and then Amy jumps in last second to save Sonic, scolding Silver for his actions, which is what starts Silver's arc in this game, which is contemplating the morality of taking one life to save more. Classic trolley problem. Actually kind of works out well for the narrative, mind you, because Sonic technically is the one who causes Iblis to escape. Not on purpose, mind you, it's caused by his failure to save Elise, but still, it's worth pointing out. He talks to Blaze about this upon finding her again, but Blaze isn't interested at all and basically gives him an when Silver asks about the morality of his actions. And ultimately just concludes, yeah, no, let's just kill Sonic. What the hell are they doing with Blaze in this game, man? But it's upon a fight with Shadow, and shortly after working with him to stop a disaster in the past, that he gets some perspective on the situation and realizes that killing Sonic is not the answer here. Silver ends up meeting up with Sonic and using time travel to help him save Elise, but when he returns to the future, Iblis is still there for some reason. But he remembers what he saw on his mission with Shadow, that Iblis can be sealed inside a vessel. He tries it, fails, and Blaze steps up. Turns out, because of her affinity for the flames, she can do it. Blaze seals Iblis inside herself and disappears to another dimension, leaving the future free. But Silver alone has to push forward to pick up the pieces. And that is the end of Silver's campaign. God, I hate 06's story so much. Silver's story in 06 is a nice story in theory, but in practice there's just a lot that doesn't work. And to be fair to Silver, it's mostly Blaze's fault for being in a plot it makes no sense for her to be in, but Silver's story just feels like a mess, which a lot of Sonic stories do. This is nothing new, but for his debut showing, it doesn't exactly give Silver a good head start to make an impression. I mean, hey, it's only the second worst storyline in 06, so it's at least got that going for it. It's frustrating because there are things about this character I like. I like that Silver's deal is that he's actually objectively pretty damn strong with his psychic powers, but he's also naive and inexperienced and has room to grow. And I think that Sonic and Shadow being these sort of semi-mentors to him throughout the game in that regard is kinda cool. They just don't go as far with it as they could, I think. I think it's also really good characterization that Silver's shown to be very appreciative of the most mundane of things. I think it's really interesting that we have this character from this ruined future that has this great appreciation for things that most people wouldn't really think about. So, Overall, his first outing in 06 is a valiant attempt, but unfortunately, the plot is actively working against Silver trying to make his story work. Not that any of it matters anyway, because it all gets retconned, but you know, let's move on. Silver would be reintroduced to the canon through Sonic Rivals, and unfortunately, the story of Sonic Rivals 1 wasn't that great either. The story of this game is very much just a laundry list of contrived excuses for the characters to fight each other, and Silver is no exception, leaving his debut here to leave a little to be desired. But in Rivals 2, however, Silver is actually kinda neat here, and it's due to his unlikely but all the same surprisingly endearing dynamic with Espio the Chameleon of Team Chaotix. The two start the game suspicious of each other since Espio is looking into an incident regarding missing Chow, and Silver seems to be the one who keeps taking them, but as the two clash, they eventually learn what each other are up to and form an unlikely alliance. Espio learns that Silver has been hiding away Chow because Eggman Negative, yep, Negative, not touching the biblically accurate name with a 10-foot pole, wants to use them as a sacrifice to the ancient beast, Ifrit. Espio, upon learning this, ends up becoming Silver's ally on this mission. The game also reveals that Silver's psychic powers are ring-powered, which as far as I can tell, never gets brought up again in the entire franchise, so that's kinda weird, and this is still the plot of a Rivals game at the end of the day, so contrived reasons for fights still very much exist, but I think the Espio dynamic is doing a lot of lifting for Silver in this game, and I think this game is one of Silver's better outings. It's just a shame that, as you'll see from here on out, the well starts drying for our favourite White Hedgehog. In the 2010s games, if you weren't Sonic, Tails, or Eggman, you were piss out of luck for screen time, and Silver is no exception. He gets a cool boss fight in Generations, but beyond that, fans of the White Hedgehog may find themselves starved in this era of Sonic. He was in Forces too, but he was mostly in that game to serve as fodder for Infinite to Aura Farmons, so it's not exactly a good showing, when your purpose in the story is to make Infinite come off as more intimidating. I think the only other real 2010s depiction worth noting is his appearance in Colors DS, which mainly seems to serve to be the reintroduction of Silver and Blaze to each other, mainly having them bond over bullying Orbot and Cubot. Okay then. The game also seems to allude that some semblance of Sonic 06 is still in these two's memory, as Sonic points out that the two fight in perfect sync, and Tails mentions that they may have been partners in another time, and I really would have rathered we just rebuilt Blaze and Silver's dynamic from scratch rather than trying to tie it back to a game where Blaze was forced into a role she didn't really fit in and her presence raised way too many questions to count. I suppose it's a fine enough way to tie these characters back together, but I think it leaves a bit to be desired. We'll talk a bit more about my thoughts on the Silver Blaze dynamic soon when we get to IDW, but for now, this is all I have to say on the matter. So anyway, IDW! Okay, so IDW Comics is where Silver gets most of his work done these days. He's not really had the opportunity to show up in a mainline game yet, and to his credit, I don't think he's bad here at all. The main thing people point out about IDW Silver is that he's a lot more whimsical than he's ever been before, some fans giving it the demeaning nickname Uwilva. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. I don't mind this change. If anything, I think it shows how Silver's grown as a character. Now that he's got friends he can trust and he's helped save the world a few times, I think it shows that he's more confident and willing to open up, as we see when he first interacts with Whisper in the comics, which is another Silver character dynamic I quite like a lot, by the way. I am a big fan of Whisper and Silver as a character dynamic. But yeah, I personally like that Silver's more upbeat and friendly in these comics. He doesn't feel the need to be so jaded anymore. Granted, he's not completely free of all trouble, as I'll get into a bit later, but for now, I think Silver really got his time to shine in the Metal Virus arc, where, during the finale, Sonic quite literally tells Silver that he thinks without Silver's help, saving the world might be impossible, and sure enough, Silver pulls through. I think this is genuinely one of Silver's greatest moments, and it's a shame that people who stick to the games really haven't gotten to see Silver like this before. Silver also has a couple other cool moments in IDW, like saving Shadow's ass in the growing Eggman City, and I like that he picks up gardening as a hobby, planting of course being something you put effort into so you have something nice in the future, so it fits his character theming pretty well. But one of my favourite IDW moments for Silver was in an annual story, where we see Silver's fear over the future and his role as its protector start to get to him, and he ends up having a panic attack over it. And who else to help him calm down and process his feelings than Espio, baby! Let's fucking go! Yowie is back on the menu, boys! As you can tell, I'm very enthusiastic about the character dynamic of Espio and Silver, and I only wish I could hold the same enthusiasm for Silver's dynamic with Blaze, because on paper, I like that dynamic. There's a very, excuse me, he asked for no pickles vibe going on with those two that I enjoy, and I think that these two have just enough in common and different to work as a dynamic. But it's built on such a shaky foundation that it's hard for me to truly immerse myself in these two as a dynamic, and I genuinely think I'd be able to digest it a lot better if Colors DS had just had the two meet again normally, instead of implying there was some sort of string of fate arbitrarily holding the two together since '06, a game where Blaze being there makes no goddamn sense. The other issue I have with this character dynamic is that it often feels like it's entirely used to Silver's benefit rather than Blaze's. This dynamic is used to build Silver's character a lot more than it is for Blaze, and I just want my goat from the Soul Dimension to do cool stuff again, but I'll talk about this more in the Blaze episode. Anyway, overall, Silver as a character right now feels like he's very low on Sega's priority list, which is definitely very sad to see, but I kinda get it. The play right now is to pick a few characters to focus on per game, Frontiers focusing on the core Team Sonic, and Shadow Generations focusing on, well, Shadow. Which I think is a nice sweet spot between the problem a lot of Sonic games have, where it's either everyone is here but no one actually gets to do anything, or the opposite, where literally only Sonic, Tails, and Eggman matter. But this does mean we kinda have to tangle with the reality that some of the greater cast may take a while to get their chance to shine again because of this, and that's what Silver is currently suffering from, I think. So, will we see more of Silver the Hedgehog in the future? Who knows? But for now, here is the Silver Thoughts Lightning Round! Dreams of an Absolution is by far one of the most underrated songs in the entire Sonic franchise. Silver's psychic power gimmick is very weird to make work with a speed-focused game. I'm genuinely curious how one could make a modern playable Silver work with Sonic's design philosophy. When it comes to shipping, I think I've very much shown that I'm a big fan of Espio x Silver, but I can't pretend Silver and Blaze fans don't put the work into their fan works to make a pretty cute ship despite my grievances with how the official media handles these two characters. I have a hard time picking a favourite Silver voice. I think they all do the job well enough, but I do gotta say it's kinda hard to hear Bryce Papenbrook Silver and unhear Makoto Naegi. I like his animation in Crossworlds where he pulls the camera towards him with his powers, that's kinda aura. Does anyone else think it's weird that they tried to push Silver as a Sonic rival? Like Knuckles, Metal, Shadow, and even Surge that would come after, all characters that felt like perfect thematic opposites to Sonic, while Silver really didn't feel like he mirrored Sonic that much in any way. He was kinda just a guy with cool powers that happened to have smoke with him. And for a final quick thought, I do hear a lot about Silver in the Archie comics and how he's actually really cool over there, but unfortunately at time of writing, I have yet to finish Archie and I haven't gotten up to where Silver appears yet, so I'm just gonna have to take people's word for that. Anyway, that's about it for Silver the Hedgehog in this episode of Sonic Character Chaos DX. Tell me what you think of Silver in the comments, and also, before I go, I'd like to shout out my buddy Rancor for giving me some pointers on stuff to mention in this video, so yeah, thanks for the help. But yeah, I'll see you all next time!